So IHazToys is essentially the sole purpose is creating things we want to create together, or working with other artists and creating original IPs and just kind of making the toys the way we want to make them.
Where this came from is probably stretches back maybe 2 or 3 years from when the very first figure that we sculpted for IHazToys was kind of done. It just started off more like a hobby and then kind of grew into something that was like, this is what we're going to do.
Troy started IHazToys with Remy 7, and he started streaming Remy 7, and it was so clear the kind of feedback from people that they really loved seeing the process from beginning to end of Remy 7. She became a toy, sold out instantly, and we were like, you know what, we should just keep doing this. Streaming on Twitch was kind of like the best thing we could have done, really, because you don't really get to communicate with the artist on the other end, and you don't really get to see how it was made, the struggles you had to go through to kind of figure it out and getting there. That's kind of the cool part, because we get to be quite open, and I think at certain points it gets nerve-wracking, like when you get stuck and you're trying to figure something out, you don't really want anyone to see your struggles, but I think that's what kind of makes it cool, because the people on the other end go, I have totally struggled with that. I didn't know that that's how you could fix it. Thank you so much. Our main subject matter that gets us really excited is females. Like, there's just not enough of them, you know, and there's not enough like kick-ass babes, you know. So I think it starts from inspiration. A lot of times we're looking online or we're looking on ArtStation, and there's just so many cool concepts. So it can either be we find a concept that is really inspirational, we can contact that concept artist and be like, hey, do you want to work together? Do you want to make a toy? And it happened with Pokemon and Troy, and you know, birthed Remy 7, and it was amazing. And that was really great. So from there, we've actually tried to contact concept artists that we enjoy their work and create original products. Like, hey, what do you think about this girl, and she's got this weapon in this environment, and maybe she's like doing this kind of thing, and then they'll concept it up and then model it. And that's sort of where we're at this point, is making more original things that people haven't seen yet with these artists that we like. More often than not, because our skills are not in concept art, we will work with other people. But you know, that's the cool thing about IHazToys. If we wanted to, we can just mock up a girl in 3D and be like, cool, we're gonna go with that and make her. And a cool example of that is Keiko and Char. And Keiko and Char is the character I made for the ArtStation competition. And the rules were you had to completely make it yourself. It was an original IP. And again, I'm totally awful at 2D, and I'm not a concept artist, but just doodling away on your own and putting your ideas on paper and seeing it in 3D, knowing that from the beginning to end it was your creation, is kind of really awesome.
All of the digital sculpting is done through a piece of software called ZBrush, and I first started using it about 12 years ago. I've been using it basically ever since for everything that I do. It's basically just like digital clay. And I've always been using a Wacom tablet as well. It's just the best kind of interface with ZBrush. I also use a piece of software called Keyshot, which is kind of a really nice partner program with ZBrush, because there's a bridge between the two pieces of software that allows me to quickly render any given kind of sculpture that I'm working on at the time in a more like realistic lighting setting, so I can really kind of see the forms and shapes and just get a quick kind of feedback of what the toy might actually look like sitting on a desk. I actually first used a Cintiq about 6 years ago. I found it very difficult to switch back from using a Cintiq to using my trusty tablet at home. I think I slowly got back into the rhythm after I left that job, but now that I've got a Cintiq, the biggest kind of key difference is that it allows me to be that one step closer to the actual subject. There's a strange kind of disjointed feeling when you're kind of like drawing down here, but you're kind of looking up there. When you're able to like work directly on the screen and work, you know, it feels even more like digital clay that way. It sounds strange, but that's kind of the biggest, I think, advancement, or the biggest kind of like sense of sculpting, the sense of like realism. I think that really helps. Anybody, I think, who's a digital sculptor will be able to get that same sense as well. Just the whole fact that you can see the thing right in front of you, and when you touch that stylus to the surface, that it makes an imprint exactly where you're touching it. It definitely does help.
Troy and I are actually really similar in those ways, because since I've learned from him, I've pretty much been like a copycat and then gone on my own route. I actually used to use a Wacom Intuos 4, and I had come across the Intuos 3 at my friend Lindsay's house, and I was like, oh my god, if you're not using that, I have to use it, please. So we did a swap, and I love the Intuos 3. I don't know if it's because it's like heavy and reliable, but I used that for a long time, the large one, it's perfect. But then I had upgraded to Cintiq, and I've only used it once prior to this. And it was really cool because I always struggle with things like making really straight lines or things looking crisp and clean. But it's a better opportunity, almost like you're drawing, to really kind of edge things or follow a line. I really sucked at that using the Intuos. As far as programs specifically, definitely ZBrush is like 99.9% of the thing that I use, unless I'm using Maya for hard surface materials. Then we usually just throw it into Keyshot and edit it in Photoshop. It's like a very small pipeline and process of the tools that we use, really. I think even though I loved using a tablet, of course, over a mouse, it always felt so disconnected, like looking up and then looking down. I always had to look down at things, even though there's really nothing there. But having the Cintiq, and I think having quite a large space being used, it kind of feels like I can be in it. Even though, of course, there's a monitor, I'm kind of on the model and being kind of one with it. As strange as that sounds, it's like, for a 3D artist, that's pretty much as close as you're going to get to being traditional. And you get to really kind of be involved in it. And I think from a monitor to a tablet, it always felt so disconnected. So it's that one step closer, being with your model. I kind of was skeptical at the beginning. It's like, it's just a Wacom to Cintiq. It's going to be essentially the same. But the moment I started working on a Cintiq, it's kind of like I was able to view my model differently. I was able to like zoom in and see the itty-bitty details that I missed using in Intuos for some reason. But with a Cintiq, I could kind of like get real nitty-gritty with it. I would say it allowed me to go one step further as well. Whenever I would think I was finished, now I can kind of make it even more refined because I get to really study it and make it clean and crisp.
What we do is we finish the ZBrush sculpt, we send it to our producers, and they cut the model up, they print the model, and then they make molds of the master print. From those molds, they basically pour resin cast copies, and that process takes maybe, depending on the number that we need, maybe 6 months. Once those are done, we get a few copies sent to us so we can kind of really look over them and pick it apart and see if this is what we want and whether the quality is exactly what we're looking for. If everything's good to go, we get 1 or 2 copies sent out to our master painters, and that same process kind of happens again. So they do a paint job and they send it back to us, and we kind of look at it and we go, yeah, this is awesome. And then we arrange a whole bunch of copies, maybe 30, 40, however many we're getting painted, and we send those to the paint studio. So after the painted copies are completed, basically we throw up a pre-order on our online store, and people can start purchasing them, and they are all kind of like packaged up, nicely boxed, and they ship out from our producer's factory.
I think so far, I'm a bit biased, of course. Yellow Star has to be my favorite because the original concept was done by an artist called Deadman, and he does these crazy cool, like really sexy females with crazy pieces of armor, and some have bunny ears and some have cat ears and some have like huge robot necks next to him. So he made a special concept specifically for Yellow Star, and all of us got to kind of see from the beginning to end with Troy and Deadman working together. And she's the first toy that we got to bring through the entire pipeline, including her being painted, and it was just kind of like really inspiring. I think that's why I really like her the most. And she's so simple, but so creatively in your face, especially her like bright metallic hair, and it's wrapping around her, and she's just got this giant weapon. It's just super cool. Which of course brought me to be inspired by Rin the Hammer Girl. Rin was my first kind of attempt at a really sexy, strong babe for IHazToys. The original concept artist was King Shimute, and I saw his concept just kind of perusing through the internet at some point, and she just had this cool like lion piece of armor and a giant hammer, and I contacted him. I was like, wow, dude, this piece is awesome. Please let me make it into a toy. I really like it. I was just so keen to make this. And he was like, yep, totally cool, that's awesome. She was kind of my most difficult piece to work with because she was so detailed and she's so anatomically kind of frank, and I'm not that great at anatomy. But it was a lot of fun putting her up in side by side with Yellow Star. It was like we both created really cool females together, and now they're coming to light. You know, Rin just finished getting painted and she looks beautiful. A different painter, a different set of kind of like an idea of painting, but they both hold really well on their own. Keiko and Chara is another great example. We're so used to doing really cool, sexy females, but I also like really simplified, cute little anime characters. Keiko and Chara I got to make completely from scratch. And seeing that in my hands was kind of overwhelming because I've got like so many anime figurines that are like that. It felt like an accomplishment, and I finally got to be a part of what I've always loved since I was a kid.